everyone, and welcome to my inaugural podcast, episode number 1 for Let's Go Hawks. Well, we had quite the game this past Saturday. Not much to talk about here. It was pretty low scoring. 10-7 is your final. First half was practically an all defense on the showcase there. Of course, when you have an offense like Iowa's that is struggling to move the ball, you're going to make most defenses look like all-stars against you. I don't know how good Northwestern's defense actually is, but they look pretty good. But again, like I said, I think it's a little bit more that Iowa's offense is struggling rather than Northwestern's defense is that good. And honestly, I haven't really looked at Northwestern's other games to see comparatively how they did versus common opponents or anything like that. So, scoreless the first half, and then you get to the second half. Scoreless until there was a punt block, and I don't remember exactly when this was, but that set up Iowa's lone touchdown of the day. A nice pass from Deacon Hill to Astringa, the tight end, put 7 up on the board, and then there was the goal line stand that Iowa made to prevent Northwestern from tying the game at that point, but they eventually did tie the game, I believe, on the ensuing drive after the punt by Corey Taylor did not go as far as it could have. In fact, it may be one of the worst punts he has done in recent games, maybe the entire year. But nonetheless, they tied it up, Northwestern, and then Iowa got the ball back, and we were all thinking at that point probably, and I know at the watch party, a lot of people were thinking, we are going to find a way not to move this ball, and we're going to give it back to Northwestern, then they're going to win the game. But anyway, we had just enough to do it because Deacon Hill made another nice pass over to Caleb Brown, of all people. First catch as a Hawkeye. This was the Ohio State transfer, 4-star Ohio State transfer, who had been struggling to get any action in any previous games, but he really came in through us on this one and got us pretty much within field goal range. And then Drew Stevens marches out there and he kicks the game-winning field goal, a 52-yarder. And it was not a surefire thing that Drew Stevens would be able to hit this field goal, considering that he had missed one earlier of 53 yards. But yes, he did. The 52-yarder went through, and Iowa wins. So that's your recap right there. Not much more to say about it. I think every game might be a struggle like this, and I think we're going to have to get used to that. Of course, I'm secretly hoping our next opponent, which I'm talking about in a moment, Rutgers, will be more of a cakewalk. Of course, we can always hope and dream, but let's talk about Rutgers in more detail. Okay, they just played Ohio State. That was their last game. They lost that game, and that was at home, 35-16. Jury's out to me whether Ohio State's got a good defense or not. What we want to know is how good Rutgers' offense is, though, because we know Iowa's defense is pretty good. You know, aside from the Penn State game, they've been giving up very few points a game. I think it's an average of 7 or less. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's something ridiculous like that. I think 33 was the Penn State game, and beyond that, yeah, it's just an average of 7 now and then. So, common opponent that sticks out right now was on October 14th versus Michigan State. That was a home game for Rutgers as well, where they defeated Michigan State 27-24. Iowa played Michigan State, I think, a few weeks earlier. Yes, they did. And this final score, of course, there was Iowa 26-16. So that's interesting right there. We have a common opponent wherein Michigan State on the road in both cases was able to muster up 24 points versus Rutgers and only 16 versus us. So 8 points less, basically a 1-2 score, I guess, technically, since you would need one additional point beyond the 7. But anyway, there's a common opponent there in Michigan State. I'm not sure what exactly it tells us. If we are to look at the flip side of things, Iowa was able to score 26 points against Michigan State, while Rutgers was able to score 27. So that's almost a wash. They scored 1 more point than us versus the same team. But they only won by 3 at home versus Michigan State, where we won by 10. So, I would have to give the edge to Iowa here offensively. at least on paper, and defensively on paper and provably. But it's all a question of whether Iowa's offense can get going here. Let's take a look at another common opponent if we can. But I think rather than look at home games, I want to look at away games, because when you play away games, you tend to have a worse performance. And it might be a more fair contest to see how someone performs on the road versus at home. And let's see. Well, they haven't played Penn State yet, so we can't look at that one. Here we go. Wisconsin. Back on October 7th, Wisconsin beat them 24-13. Let's see. What was our final score again versus them at Wisconsin? 15-6. Okay, 9-point differential there versus a 11, but it was in the opposite direction because Rutgers lost that game. I'm seeing a trend, honestly. When I read this game and I look at these two data points, versus how much they're favored by and the common opponents that make the most sense to look at for me right now, this is a game Iowa should win because it's at home. Iowa plays better at home, typically speaking. Rutgers is not the best team in the East, despite being 6-3. And don't get me wrong, that's a pretty good record in a pretty tough division, the toughest out of the two divisions, I would say, year to year. Now, if I'm looking at their ranking nationally, they got them at a 43. It looks like here, and Penn State's at 2. So that's a pretty huge drop off. I wouldn't expect to see a blowout game. I'm gonna say I'm feeling another 10-7 type thing. It's gonna be close. I hope I'm wrong. I just want Iowa to win, of course, by any margin they can. But hope I'm wrong, and we actually have a breakout game. I feel like we're due because I felt like Iowa's offense is not as bad as they've looked all year. I feel like a key block here, a key block there. The offensive line just gets a little bit better, gives the quarterback more time to throw, let him make a good decision, or better yet, just run the football, not have to pass at all. If we could run, we wouldn't have to throw. But anyway, Hawk fans, the question is to you, what do you think's going to happen on Saturday? Is it going to be an Iowa victory? Let me know down in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe and like. Until next episode, let's go Hawks.